Hello, good evening, and welcome back to Where There's a Will, There's a Burnden Way for the third episode of this fantastic Bolton Wanderers based podcast, if I do say so myself, with me, Will Jones. So, I hope you've all had a good week and have enjoyed last week's episode with the author of the lofty biography, Matt Clough. It was a pleasure to have Matt on. I'm always looking for guests, so if you're interested, do get in touch, and as usual, feel free to let me know how you think we can improve this podcast, if at all. I'm sure you can, with each episode to come. So anyway, without further ado, let's get started. So what's happened in the last week then? To begin with, not a lot to be honest with you. No midweek game for Wanderers this week, so it's mainly going to be chit-chat from social media, a little bit more informal, keep the content varied, nice and relaxed as we come to the end of the weekend. We'll start with Tuesday then, when manager Ian Evatt voiced his concerns with the leaks getting out of the club, particularly with team news and transfers. It's an obvious frustration of his, which, like I said on Twitter, is it's certainly preventable. I can't help but think it's sort of unacceptable, to be honest. I mean, it's not great as it is at the minute, so I'm sure the club would appreciate it if they can get any help they can get, and not have us doing their nuts in as well. So, I'm not sure who it is myself, so I can't possibly name names, but come on, please keep it to him, guys. Yeah. So yeah, that's that topic covered pretty quickly. So let's get on to Wednesday. So Wednesday was obviously another quiet one. So we'll just gloss straight over that. Thursday was slightly more eventful. It marked the 2-year anniversary of the protests against Ken Anderson, something which I somehow found myself at the forefront of. Obviously it was a difficult time for all involved, but with the help of all the blog sites, we managed to attract and drafted almost 4,000 Bolton fans on the night to make our voices heard, and obviously in front of the national press. I must say it was really something to be part of, and obviously despite the issues that followed, and the Anderson era was surely at an end, and saw FE, the current owners, take over. I mean, I look at it as a big moment in the club's history, and it's something we can look back on as a success. I certainly think so anyway. I mean, let me know, how effective you thought the protests were in the comments anyway. But yeah, it's certainly something of note which has happened recently anywhere in the last week. Next up then, Friday, Ian Evatt spoke to the press and told us that Kieran Lee would miss the Tranmere game, obviously a costly blow, which we will get onto in a little bit. Ian Evatt's comments were then kind of held to an account by many a Wanderers fan on social media after BBC Radio Manchester released a soundbite from the Evatt presser stating he refused to let the club live in the past. Now many, including myself, took this way out of context, to be honest with you, saying, how could we possibly ignore all the fond memories and all the iconic moments in our history that kind of makes us what we are today. Bolton fans certainly felt like they had a point there, and rightly so, had that been the case. However, with additional context which was provided the day after, his words were only kind of in relation, I think, to the previous Tranmere game, stating that he was only focused on that task in hand, being obviously Tranmere again the following that day on Saturday. A lively day to say the least on Twitter, and it didn't end there. Friday also saw Zach Clough leave Forest and Thibaut Verlinden leave Stoke, two ex-Wanderers who I know fans would love to have back, but have joined Wigan and Fortuna Sittard respectively. Good luck to both of those boys as they get their careers back on track with some well-earned and much needed game time at their new clubs, even if one of them is Wigan, sadly. We miss you, Zach. Anyway, local non-league side Chorley then took on Wolves Friday night, and they were narrowly and so unluckily beaten by what's nothing more than a 30-35 yard screamer. Otherwise, I thought they'd given an extremely good account of themselves and can certainly bow out the Emirates FA Cup with their heads held high. It's a shame we didn't get one last rendition of Someone Like You, the famous Adele post-cup win anthem, but there we go. On to Tranmere then, Saturday, game day. How were the nerves, you ask? Not great, I must admit. I wasn't all that confident, and I think I had every right not to be with the current run of form. It wasn't about to get much better, unfortunately, was it, folks? A 2-1 loss at Prenton Park. It was somewhat overshadowed, though, by what can only be described as the single worst officiating performance of all time. I'm still not over it, which saw a ridiculous penalty given against Ryan Delaney in the first half, for supposedly impeding Liam Feeney. That gave Tranmere their second, thanks to James Vaughan from the spot. The aftermath of which footage appeared to show Matt Gilks high-fived the prolific striker, which is that's largely been contested, but like many of the rest of the calls yesterday. Anthony Sarcevic obviously was then clean through second half, rugby tackle to the floor, mind-boggling, nothing given, just ridiculous. And then the offender of the official penalty, Delaney, was then sent off for leading with a flayed elbow in an aerial challenge. Again, massively contestable. Didn't think that was a sending off. I know he was already on a bookie, but even so. The skipper Sars then grabbed one back, but it wasn't enough for the Whites. Ian Evatt was then sent off for dissent after the final whistle, having spoken to the referee, which he insists, and to be honest I'm inclined to agree, was not deserving of a red. I'm glad he had something to say though, unlike much of the players alarmingly, and that he will be reporting the quite catastrophic and, to be honest, sack-worthy performance from Neil Hare and his assistants there. Another loss though. Is time running out for Ian Evatt? Who knows? It's certainly concerning with no end in sight at the minute. Fans are worried. They've got every right to be. Let's just hope it can be sorted sooner rather than later. So with much less action than usual in the last week, we're almost nearly at the end of this slightly briefer than usual episode once again. But before I end, I just do want to promote the upcoming Supporters Trust AGM on Thursday, which I'll be reviewing in next week's show, possibly with another member of the trust board. We shall see on that one. But yeah, as I say, Thursday 28th on Zoom, open to all trust members. Radio commentary legend Jack Dearden will be hosting, hoping to get him on the podcast at some stage, despite being on the panel of our friends at the BBC, the Wanderer podcast. Great podcast, I must say. Bit of free promotion there for them. And obviously manager Ian Evatt and the club's CEO Andy Gartside will be on the panel, along with the trust board, including myself. Very much looking forward to that. So get yourself signed up to the trust if you haven't already. Accept your Zoom invitations if you're already a member, and I shall see you lovely lot on Thursday for that. And obviously the next Sunday for the fourth episode of Where There's a Will, There's a Burnden Way, which, like I said, will likely be a review of the AGM. So yeah, with that said, thank you very much for tuning in on whichever platform you're listening or watching to the third episode of Where There's a Will, There's a Burnden Way. Do apologise that it's a little bit shorter this week than usual. We'll aim to get them a little bit longer. Obviously with guests it does help, so as you can imagine with one man it does fly quite quickly. But anyway, I'll try and drag them out a little bit further than this week. But anyway, like I said, as usual, get in touch on the socials at Where There's a Will, There's a Burnden Way, or rather WTAWTABW everywhere for content-based queries. I'm at WIL1J on Twitter. You can email WTAWTABW@gmail.com for all business inquiries and sponsorship opportunities. And then obviously subscribe, like, comment, share. Give me some feedback, everything else on what platform you use, and all the others, why not, if you're feeling generous. But yeah, like I said, thank you very much for joining us for the third episode of Where There's a Will, There's a Burnden Way. I've been Will Jones, and I will catch you next week. Bye now.